What's up, my Central Unit? It's the Central Man here. So this is a brand new series on this channel of me reviewing NXT takeover shows. Actually, I'm lying when I say new series or segments. Actually, it's the same thing, by the way. I mean, this is a rebooted series, a relaunched series. Reboot, relaunch, same thing. Anyway, of me reviewing NXT takeover shows. I've been originally done this series, actually in the middle of the series a couple of years ago. Was it 2021? For whatever reason, I just stopped. I don't know, and I give it a good thought and think to myself, it's time to reboot the series. So all of the original reviews of those takeover shows are gone. They're not deleted, but it's on private. So time to reboot this series and finish the story. So anyway, I'll get more in depth about this series next time. So in this video I'm going to review the first ever NXT live event, that is NXT Arrival. So this show was at Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida on the 27th of February 2014. The attendance of the show is 400 plus, and by the way, this is not a pay-per-view, this is a live action special event, and this is the first ever live action WWE event on the WWE network at the time, because the network was launched on the 24th of February. So this was the first ever live action event on that network. It's kind of like a brand new era. I miss the network. Used to have the network, now it's on Netflix. You can find this event on Netflix or on the NXT YouTube channel for these events, and also classic NXT episodes. So anyway, so the commentators for this show for NXT Arrival, we got Tom Phillips. Right now is Tom Hanivan? Sorry, I can't pronounce this guy's surname. He's used his real name right now in TNA. He is formerly known as Tom Phillips. Byron Saxton and William Regal. Regal at the time, before he was the authority figure on NXT programming, he's just a color commentator. The rebooted NXT started in September of 2012. I'm talking about the brief history of the rebooted version of NXT. Because before that, the predecessor to NXT is FCW, Florida Championship Wrestling, and then once they closed down FCW, decided to reboot NXT, because NXT has been around for 4 years at this point. Because they stopped doing ECW, they do NXT, but the early days of NXT was the reality game show version of it. And once they rebooted it, and the rest is history. They produced proper good talent. That is the peak days of NXT is the Golden Black era. So that's the brief history of NXT, briefly. So anyway, it starts with I forgot to mention this. It's on the Wikipedia page. I'm gonna read. I don't think you can find some episodes of leading up to Arrival. I don't think I'm gonna review these NXT episodes leading up to a takeover show. It's just whatever, I can do what I want. But anyway, so the event was praised by critics, but some people had criticized the technical issues, watching the show at the time. That was, like I said, it's on the network. The first ever live WWE event on the WWE network. Quick result of the dark match on the show. Mason Ryan defeats Sylvester Lefort, and you won't see Mason Ryan ever again because he ended up getting released in April of that year, and he ended up retiring from wrestling a year later. So anyway, so this show begins with Triple H. Like some music, iconic, not iconic, but kind of like this epic music in the background with the lights, lasers. Triple H, saying, did his shtick, are you ready? No, he goes like, are you ready? He kind of like putting over NXT, saying like, this is the next generation, and the next generation has arrived. Just plug the show. Then we got the intro for NXT at the time, Raw. That was probably one of my favorite NXT intros of all time, in my opinion. Like, it's that and While Young. That was during the game show era of NXT. So anyway, so the first ever match on the WWE Network, the first match to kick off NXT Arrival, we got Sami Zayn taking on Cesaro. This is the blow off of their rivalry. It started when Sami Zayn debuted with the company in May, defeated Cesaro, because at the time I think Cesaro was starting out to be part of the Real Americans. And forgot to mention this, this show took place, 3 days, This show took place, I think it was 4 days after the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. I forgot to mention that. That was the final WWE pay-per-view under the pay-per-view online streaming service before they, launched the network. Forgot to mention that, folks. Anyway, so get back to this rivalry. So it started in the spring of 2013 when Sami Zayn debuted with the company. He ended up beating Cesaro on his first night in the company. Cesaro, like I said, Cesaro was starting doing this whole part of the Real Americans gimmick with Seb Coulter, that is Dutch Mantel, and Jack Swagger. And it kind of continued, Sami Zayn won the first match of the rivalry, and Cesaro won the next 2 or 3, because one of these matches of the rivalry was a 2-hour-free pinfall match. So, people talk about, like, Sami Zayn's rivalry is, people talk banging about Sami Zayn's rivalry with Kevin Owens, but his first, major rivalry down in NXT has to be Cesaro, Like, that really, I think his match, his, feud with Cesaro really put him on the map, So, I think it asked, look at the Wikipedia page, Sami Zayn asked for one more match. I think he refuses, but they made a match anyway. That will be, the final time between Sami Zayn and Cesaro, they fought. Cesaro won the second and the third, so, this is the 4th match of the rivalry. They're bringing up, the 4th match was the match of the year. That was in 2013, by the way. This match, the blow-off is in the start of 2014. So, anyway, and the announcers bringing up Sami Zayn's, is rehabbing because he had a knee injury. So, anyway, this match between Sami Zayn and Cesaro is technically the match of the night. Back and forth, Cesaro, I keep saying Cesaro, Sami Zayn, he's the high flyer, Cesaro is the technical wrestler. He's he's strong, but also the technical the master. Every time Sami Zayn was going for his offense, trying to gain for momentum, but Cesaro cut him off. I felt like he was going for a crossbody, but Cesaro countered with a backbreaker. Sami Zayn was going for the tornado DDT through the ring post. I think it was the splash through the ring post. I think it was he goes through that ring post. I think and hit his opponent with the tornado DDT. But this time Cesaro cut him off with the uppercut. The whole bulk of the match, Cesaro was really working on the injured leg of Sami Zayn. Like I said, the announcers bring up his knee injury, swinging his leg into the ring post, doing some toe holds onto it. I kind of, the fans really got behind Cesaro. Cesaro was a heel at the time, but they were, I think at the time they were teasing for a face turn with Cesaro. We'll get to more of that later on. They were chanting, with Sami Zayn with the people, Anyway, so I think he kicked out Sami Zayn's Havuna kick. No, he kicked out the Havuna kick. He kicked out the Blue Thunder powerbomb. Then the Havuna kick. Actually, I'm lying. So, yeah, he kicked out the Blue Thunder powerbomb, or the Blue Thunder bomb, whatever you call it. I think. Anyway, hit Cesaro with the exploder. I think he locked Cesaro with the Kochi clutch, but he counted it into a stretch muffler, aka the Brock lock. It's kind of cool. That's a cool lock. You basically, if you don't know why it's a stretch muffler, the stretch muffler? It's basically you wrapping the opponent's leg around your head, to work on the injured, to try to break his leg. Anyway, you gotta reach the ropes. Yeah, it kind of cut off Sami Zayn's his the springboard moonsault. He kind of slammed him onto the steel ramp. Anyway, so anyway, so yeah, he did the swing. And he did the swing. There's one spot in this match, I think Sami was going for the Frankensteiner, sorry. Cesaro kind of blocked it. He was going for a powerbomb off the top rope, but instead Sami managed to carry it at the last minute to hit the Frankensteiner, then hit the Havana kick onto Cesaro, but Cesaro kicked out. I think one more of the match, Cesaro trying to hit Sami Zayn with the neutralizer, but Sami carried him with I think it was a sunflip. Was it sunflip powerbomb or the Canadian Destroyer? Whatever. That was cool. That was a near finish. He had Cesaro hit multiple uppercuts onto Sami, telling him to stay down. So anyway, trying to give the last energy, of it, so because this is the last chance. He wants to beat Cesaro for the second time, because Cesaro won the last two, or the last three actually, in this rivalry. So anyway, so in the end, Cesaro managed to hit the I think it was the European uppercut. It was the European uppercut, or the disc. I think it was the European uppercut. Yeah, the European uppercut and the neutralizer. No, it's the discus European uppercut and the neutralizer for the win. Afterwards, Cesaro, he thought he thought he's gonna leave the ring, but instead he came back to the ring. He thought he was gonna attack Sami Zayn, but instead he kind of standing him up his feet, hugged him. Then he left, trying to brace and give him that source of respect. He did it to. I remember he did a match against William Regal months prior. He thought this was leading up to Cesaro turning babyface. Unfortunately, that's not the case. He ended up winning the Andre the Giant Battle Royal at WrestleMania 30, in April, and then that derailed his probably his momentum. He ended up teaming up with Paul Heyman, the King of Swings, and I don't want to get into that, But Sami, he got emotional. You could see a little bit of the tears of his eyes. The fans give him the appreciation of Sami Zayn. Even though he lost, but he got a breakout performance. Even though he's been in the company, the 2 hour pinfall match months prior, but he got that appreciation and respect. So yeah, I think Cesaro winning was the right call, because, by the way, he needed that win because he just lost, failed to win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship match inside of the Elimination Chamber match at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view a few days prior. So he needs that win to build some momentum going into WrestleMania 30. It makes no sense of Cesaro losing to a developmental guy as in Sami Zayn. it's a shame they never really had, like, they probably had 1 or 2 matches in 2016, but the next time they kind of like associated between Sami Zayn and Cesaro was in, was it 2019, 2020, when they're like doing this trio with Cesaro, Sami Zayn, and Nakamura. And yeah, I don't think they really it's a shame they never had a renewed rivalry on the main roster. It's just what it is. It's funny, like, they both wrestled in I don't think they wrestled in Ring of Honor. They're like ex Ring of Honor guys, you know. But it's just what it is, man, because Sami Zayn is still in the company to this day. Cesaro right now is Claudio Castagnoli. He's doing fine. He's doing alright in AEW. So yeah, this was a really good match. So really kicked off Arrival match of the night. So the next match, I'm going to keep it short and simple. We got CJ Parker, better known right now in the current timeline as Juice Robinson, taking on Mojo Rawley. Short and simple. This is just a squash match, you know. I think he had some moments, but it was kind of not say a bad match. It wasn't bad. It was just kind of meh. Just a squash match, you know. It's basically a piss break match, you know. They don't want to, like, you know, yeah, it's basically, you know, calming the fans down after the opener between Sami Zayn and Cesaro. If you're like CJ Parker just basically attacking, you know, corner shots towards Mojo Rawley. So in the end, Mojo Rawley got the victory, hitting the, you know, hit the hip attack and his finisher called the Hyper Driver for the win. CJ Parker, you know, he ended up like leaving the company about, was it like late 2014, early 2015. He ended up having success in New Japan, becoming the IWGP, their version of the United States title, and he's done fuck all in AEW, so it's what it is. So anyway, so the next match, this is the first title match, you know, in the history of Arrivals, in the history of TakeOver, you know, so we got, this is for the NXT Tag Team Championships, the Ascension, that's the team of Connor and Victor, defending the title against a mysterious opponent. That mysterious opponent is Too Cool, the team of Scotty Suhati and the late Grandmaster Sexy, that is Brian Christopher, the late son of Jerry the King Lawler, by the way. So the Ascension hold the belt in of September of 2013, and it's really shocking. I think they are the longest reigning NXT Tag Team Champions of all time. Like, wow, I'm just like total gobsmack, you know. I thought I got it wrong, but I got it right. So nothing like the Mojo Rawley CJ Parker match. Nothing much to talk about. The Ascension, I don't think they got over, man. It's a pin drop, you know. I don't think they react for the Ascension, but I think with Too Cool, they're over. They were over in the Attitude Era. This is basically old school versus new school. The most popular tag team against not so popular tag team of the Ascension. You know, Too Cool. You know, Too Cool's, you know, were popular. You know, the stuff with Rikishi, the dance. You know, the ghetto attire, you know, in that time period. Anyway, so I'm trying to keep it short and simple. So, you know, Scotty, I think they did team a lot. They did tag along on an episode of Raw. I think it was the Go. Is it the Go Home Raw? It was the old school Raw. Maybe it's one of the Go Home shows. Probably at the Royal Rumble, before the Royal Rumble. Maybe wrong. Don't quote me. It's been a long time. You know, it's 2014. It's a long time. It's been like 12 years. Anyway, so in the end, Sky was going for the worm. Victor cut him off. I think he knocked like Brian Christopher off the apron. In the end, Victor and Connor hit their finisher, the Fallen Man, for the victory. It's just basically getting the Ascension over. I don't think they're over, man. I never liked the Ascension. I don't think they got over. They never got over. It's just like, I don't want to get any more in details of it. So it's just what it is. So the tag team belt much longer. Like I said, they've become the longest reigning NXT tag team champions of all time. They came up, was it the 4th tag team champions in the history to held the NXT tag team title belts. You know, it was Adrian Neville and Oliver Grey. I'll get to more of that later on when they get to the main event. I think the Wyatts, that's Harper and Rowan, then Adrian Neville and Corey Graves, then the Ascension. So yeah, 4. I was right. So anyway, before we get to the third match of the show, I forgot to mention, like, a lot of legends attend the show. So you had Kevin Nash attend the show, Bret Hart attended the show. They're basically, I think they're the part of the panel. So yeah, the show, like Ric Flair and Pat Patterson and Charlotte Flair, you know, Ric Flair's daughter. Yeah, Pat Patterson, Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, John Cena attended this show. And you got like Bret Hart, Kevin Nash, Paul Heyman, Renee Young. I think it was in the panel of the pre-show. It's not like the pre-show on the main roster. So yeah. And also attending the show is the mayor of Orange County, that is Teresa Jacobs, and the president of Full Sail University, Gary Jones. Anyway, so before we get to the fourth match of the show, or the third match of the show, actually, the Stephanie McMahon, you know, showing up. You know, kind of like putting over the show, saying like this show, like the first ever live action show on the WWE Network, it's not WrestleMania 30, but NXT Arrival. Yeah, the fans were chanting, you still got it, you know. I think she said like I never left it, you know, or I still have it, whatever she said, you know, putting over the show. Putting over the next match says, you know, about being the WWE Diva is about being power. It's all about showing the world that women could do the same as the men, but only better. So moving on to the next match of the show, we got the NXT Women's Title match between Paige and Emma. This is a rematch from the August of the previous year in the finals of the inaugural. First ever the crowning of the first inaugural NXT Women's Champion that Paige won. So anyway, and by the way, Emma won retained her number 1 contender status against Natalya to get a shot at Paige on this show. This was like 3 weeks prior, before Arrival. So yeah, you know, Paige is in the middle of her first and only run as the NXT Women's Champion. At the time, she became, I think she became the longest reigning NXT Women's Champion until Asuka broke it years later. So anyway, the match between Paige versus Emma, it was good. You know, I think the fans really get behind both Paige and Emma. Like, they're kind of like trying to like break the barrier. Because at the time, the women's wrestling, mostly in WWE, was dreadful. It was more of eye candy, just models pretend to be wrestlers. Not just wrestlers women can actually wrestle. So they're kind of like they're kind of like the poster girls, the figureheads of this Divas Revolution / the Women's Evolution, whatever you call it. So anyway, the beginning of this match, you know, you had Paige, you like got in the face of Emma. You know, push her. She pushed back. You know, they end up doing the cat fight. You know. So yeah, it was a good back. You know, it was a good back and forth. You know, like I feel like one more of the match. You know, Emma was going for the Emma lock, but Paige countered into a roll up. You know, not roll up, but a suplex. I think it was a crucifix pin, something like that. You know, it was a good back and forth. You know, like, and before that, she was going for her finisher, the Page Turner, but I think she counted into the crucifix pin. You know, they could counter their the finishers. You know, Page going for the Page Turner, Emma counted into I think it was a crucifix pin, and then Emma trying to lock in the Emma lock, but Page counted into a roll up. You know, so yeah. You know, like trying to avoid their finishers, you know. Anyway, so was it? Anyway, so Paige was going for the suplex, but instead Emma counted into a sit-down powerbomb, and also let's get a little bit more of it. Actually, we'll get at the end. So anyway, so Emma locked in a submission hold onto Paige called was it the Dow Lemma or Dow Emma? It's basically the tarantula in the ropes, kind of dumb submission hold because unless it's like no DQ, but if you lock in the submission hold on the ropes, that's automatically a rope break. Anyway, so Paige managed to hit the page turner onto Emma, and Emma's the first person to kick out. You can see the reaction of Paige's face, like she was shocked, and Emma was the first one to kicked out of the finisher by Paige. Like it's funny. Like months later, the finisher is back into the status quo because she managed to hit that finisher onto AJ Lee to win the Divas title. We'll get more of that later on. So anyway, so in the end, Paige managed to lock in her, I think it's the first time she applied, called the Paige tap out. It's basically the Scorpion lock, and made Emma tap out to retain the NXT Women's title. Afterwards, like the opener between Cesaro and Sami Zayn, Paige managed to got Emma back up on her feet. You thought like she kind of shaking hands, but instead kind of dragged her towards her face. You thought like this led it to attack, Paige turned heel, but instead that turned into a hug, embrace, showing the respect that Emma has, and that was it. So yeah, for Emma, I don't think that Emma was believing enough to knock Paige off her perch, But yeah, because at this moment in time, Emma was showing up on Raw and SmackDown. She was kind of doing this bubbly. She was kind of this bubbly character, doing I call it the Goose March, and she ended up doing the stuff with her arms, swinging side to side. I think it was a bit goofy. The fans really kind of do it in her entrance on the show, but I don't think it got over, during her storyline on the main roster with Santina Marella, she was a bit bubbly. It's funny, this is not the first, she ended up going back to NXT a year later with a different character. That'll be another story for another time. But I think you got two women end up going up, really getting called up to the main roster. I think Emma was far too early getting called up yet. I think they should have done a title change. Because Paige became the first of two women to never lose the NXT Women's title. The second person was Asuka. That will be in 2017. But Paige and Emma never got any credit. I think really kicked off this Divas Revolution, Women's Evolution. Two women can actually wrestle. But Paige went on to like I said, get called up to the main roster. Showed up on the first Raw after WrestleMania 30. Beat AJ Lee for the title. Her record still stands. She became the youngest NXT Women's Champion at the age of 20. And the youngest Divas Champion at the age of 21. For Emma, she didn't really do much on the main, in the company. She's basically dubbed as the bridesmaid, never the bride. Called up to the main roster, got cut. I think it was due to a drug possession or DOI. Came back, turned heel, got called up again, got injured, repackaged, go back to the old gimmick, and then she get released. She came back years later, didn't do nothing. It's funny right now, I think she was the first female Australian woman signed with the company. It's funny right now, you see Rhea Ripley, another native Australian, went on to become the most successful Australian wrestler to do well in WWE. In the Ultimate Timeline, would Emma get the same success? We don't know. It's just it's a shame. She's still wrestling to this day, but it's just, I think it has to do with timing. If the time was right, I think things might be different for Emma, Tenille Dashwood. So, because Paige went on to become two-time Divas champion, and Emma never won a single title in the company. And then, like I said, without Emma, you don't see female Australians getting signed with the company, like Rhea Ripley and the Iconics, So that's my 2 cents on it. So, like, if I were to do a fantasy booking office, I'd rather have like Emma beat Paige for the title on this show and give her a run with the belt, because Paige's time in NXT is nearly at the end. She was kind of like the main top woman on the brand since NXT was rebranded or rebooted. She was the top female wrestler on that company. I think she's done everything could on the NXT brand, and then I think that should be the perfect time to do a title change, but it's just what it is. So anyway, before we get to the next, it was supposed to be the next match. So it was supposed to be a match between Xavier Woods versus Tyler Breeze, but instead out comes Alexander Rusev. He will soon ditch the Alexander name of Rusev with Lana. By the way, Lana is CJ Perry. I almost say CJ Parker, but it's actually CJ Perry. That's the real name. That's Lana's real name. Anyway, Rusev came to the ring, squashed both Xavier Woods and Tyler Breeze, locking the accolade onto Xavier Woods, to make a statement. Lana, CJ Perry, really putting over Alexander Rusev. Called him the super athlete, and Rusev cut a promo, say something on the mic, speaking with his native language because Rusev is from Bulgaria, and that was it. I'm not gonna bash it that much because, like I said, this is not a pay-per-view. This is basically a special event on the WWE Network. By the way, Rusev made his first appearance on the main roster at the 2014 Royal Rumble match in January. So anyway, moving on to the main event. So the main event, this is a ladder match. This is the first ever NXT ladders match for the NXT Championship. Bo Dallas taking on Adrian Neville. How we get there. So Bo Dallas became the third ever NXT champion. Beat Big E Langston of May the previous year, because at the time the NXT title being almost 6 months old, because since the NXT brand was rebooted, or rebranded, whatever you call it, same thing. Beat Big E for the title, and afterwards the fans getting sick of Bo. They're kind of shoving Bo down people's throats. He's basically this cocky heel, pretending to be a babyface, doing the whole Bo Lee thing. I don't want to get more in details of that. He did feud with Adrian Neville for the title, a few months prior. They fought in just a normal one-on-one match that ended in a count. Then Bo Dallas left the ring, and then they had a lumberjack match, After that, that was won by Bo Dallas after the interference by Tyler Breeze. Anyway, so Adrian Neville was in the company also, since its early days, since it's rebooted. Here's a fact, Adrian Neville was the first guy to win the NXT Tag Team Champions. They were the first inaugural Tag Team Champions with Oliver Grey. If you don't know who Oliver Grey is Joel Redman, part of the British wrestling scene. He was gone after that, I think he got injured, made a few appearances after that, and then he was gone, he was cut. That's Joel Redman's time in WWE. I think he ended up be back in the British wrestling scene, by the way. Anyway, so... And also, months later, he won the tag team titles again, this time with Corey Graves. He holds the record of becoming the first, become a two-time NXT tag team champions with two different tag teams with Oliver Grey and Corey Graves. So, anyway, this is the first ladder match, first male ladder match it's going to do in the history of NXT after Arrival. So, anyway, so yeah, they're trying to capitalize on doing stipulation matches down in NXT. I think they did a no DQ match between Seth Rollins and Big E Langston. They did like 2 out of 3 pinfall match between, I think it was Sami Zayn and Cesaro. A lumberjack match between Bo Dallas and Adrian Neville, you know, trying to capitalize on not just doing a normal single one-on-one match. So anyway, so before that we had Shawn Michaels, you know, because at the time it's close to the 20 years anniversary of the Shawn Michaels Razor Ramon ladder match for the IC title at WrestleMania 10. So Shawn didn't really talk about much about how to talk about like feelings to be in a ladder match. You know, he didn't really talk about it. You know, he kind of like promoting his DVD, like Shawn Michaels WrestleMania matches. WrestleMania matches. So I'm a bit of a tongue twisting moment. So yeah, not really talk about what's the feeling to be in a ladder match. He said one thing. You know, one person is not just step foot into history, but step into greatness, and that was it. You know, I'm not going to put it in the con. You know, it didn't do nothing for me. I wish they'd just have Shawn just talk about and discuss how to be in how to survive a ladder match. So, the match between Bo Dallas versus Adrian Neville, you know, it was good. You know, I think there've been better ladder matches after this. I'm talking about in the NXT side, in the NXT realm, and you know. But this was good, you know. Like they're not overdo it with like too many ladders in the ring. If you watch like ladder matches over the years in wrestling, it was just 2 ladders, man. Like I think a ladder match is benefit for Neville because, well, Adrian Neville at the time. You know, but by the way, Adrian Neville is Pac in AEW. By the way, he kind of used the Pac name in the Indies before he got signed with the WWE. Anyway, so it kind of benefit for Neville. You know, he's a high flyer. You know, Bo Dallas this is probably one of Bo's best matches ever. Like, I don't think he have another match better than this. You know, Bo's never great in the ring, never has been, never always. He's just like kind of average in the ring. But I think I think he hit he tried to hit. I think he hit Neville with the I think he tried him with the bulldog onto the ladder. I can't remember. It's been like, you know, it's been 2 days since I watched this match, you know, or for the preparation of this review. So, you know, like Neville did like the tornado DDT onto Bo. I think he tried to knock Bo. He kind of like one more of the match, you know. Bo kind of plays Neville onto the ladder while he's trying to climb the ladder to grab the title, but Neville managed to use his leg and trying to knock Bo Dallas off the ladder, you know. Only 2 ladders, not multiple ladders, just 2 ladders, you know. It's a shame like Neville never done his like move, like that dive he does off the top ropes. He didn't do it. It's very rare. You know, like moments like you had Bo trying to do a sneaky way, like trying to tie in Neville's leg onto the ropes. He managed to get free, hit Bo Dallas with the baseboard, sliding drop kick, you know. Anyway, so I think it was a bulldog. Yeah, bulldog. I think he tried to bulldog Neville onto that ladder, but I think Neville counted it. I think I might be wrong. Don't quote me. But anyway, the one spot like here, it's kind of cool for me. Like Bo was trying to climb the ladder on one side of the ladder, one side of half of the ladder. On the other side of the ladder, on the other side of the ladder, you know, like Neville did like that. He kind of springboard onto the final 2 or 3 steps on the top of the ladder. Unfortunately, that's not the finish. I think he kind of knocked him off, something like that, you know. Like I think you know, Neville was going for the red arrow attempt, but Bo like thwarted it, you know. Can't remember what he did, you know, but in the end he managed to hit the red arrow onto Bo. What he did, he kind of put Bo placing him on one ladder, and then he did the red arrow onto Bo Dallas, and he kind of fell in the ribs because he did it onto the ladder, you know. You know, it's metal, you know. Anyway, that was cool. In the end, he managed to grab the ladder, climb the ladder, and managed to grab the title. And Neville became the fourth. You know, it's Adrian Neville, by the way. You know, if you don't know. But anyway, so Neville became the fourth ever NXT champion, because the first ever NXT champion was Seth Rollins, then Big E Langston, aka Big E, then Bo Dallas, then Adrian Neville. You know, because Bo hold the belt since May. Yeah, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, and February. He hold it about 9 to 10 months, and Neville will soon to like match that. You know, you hold that belt until the end of the year, until the final takeover show of the year. I think that was our Evolution, and we'll get to that in the future. So yeah, like with Bo Dallas, he ended up like, I think his time in NXT, like Paige, his chapter was nearly at the end. He did make a few appearances on NXT programming, but like he ended up dressed up as Mr. NXT, but he got escorted out of the building with the security guards, and that was it. In the end, again, called it to the main roster. You know, yeah, his run was a bit meh. After that, you know, he ended up, you know, he was kind of like doing the bowl lever gimmick. Then he's part of Social Outcast. It kind of was kind of relevant, you know, in that mid to late 2010s. You know, be part of the Miztourage, teaming up with Curtis Axel. You know, the B team. Then he got released. Now he's part of the Wyatt Six as Uncle Howdy. You know, they've been doing it since Bray passed away. I don't want to get into that. So for Neville, you know, like I said, he went on to hold the belt until December of that year. You know, he dropped it to Sami Zayn, get close to the main roster. His run was not so much. Yeah, he did went on to win the Cruiserweight title, but not once, but twice, and then he ended up leaving the company. He ended up, like, it's funny right now, he's ended up to have a slight success run in AEW, becoming the international champion, becoming the trios champion. He's part of the Death Riders. You know, like, I don't want to get more in the depth of Pac. You know, I think there's one reason why Pac never got like pushed heavily. Maybe it's due to his height. You know, he's 5'8", 5'9". He's still got one of the best physiques. You know, he's still got a good physique. You know, he's got shoulder, he's got deltoids, he's got a six pack. You know, he knows how to look after his body. You know, so yeah, I think it was a good way to end this show with Neville winning the title. So, my overall rating of the first ever NXT live event on the WWE Network at the time, that is NXT Arrival, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's a back and forth of giving it a 7 out of 10 or a 8 out of 10. I think right down the middle, giving it a 7.5 out of 10 was a fair score for this show. For its first live action wrestling event on the WWE Network at the time, I think they need to perform, and they did with ease. The two things I'm going to put in the cons, they're not bad matches, they're not like, oh my god, this is terrible, this is disgusting, but they're basically nothing matches. They're just basically trying to get people on the card. Is the CJ Parker versus Mojo Rawley match, and the NXT Tag Team title match between the Ascension versus Too Cool. You know, they're just basically getting the established guys on the gold and black brand known as NXT. You know, they're just basically piss break matches, you know, not bad matches, but just kind of there, you know, trying to get these guys over, trying to get these people on the card. But the things I put in the pro, like the third best match of the night is the NXT women's title match between Paige versus Emma. That really truly kick off the Divas Revolution / the Women's Evolution, whatever you call it. The second best match of the night has to be the ladders match between Bo Dallas versus Adrian Neville. It kicked off first of many ladder matches they're going to do in the years to come, and the match of the night has to be the opener between Sami Zayn versus Cesaro. This rivalry really put Sami Zayn's career in WWE on the map. Tongue tie moment. I'm gonna say it again. Yeah, this rivalry really put Sami Zayn's career on the map in WWE. You know, he's still in the company to this day, and you know, it really kicked on. You know, for the rest of his run in NXT. So, what's your thoughts on NXT Arrival and this video? Please leave your thoughts on the comment section below, smash the like button, click the notification bell, and subscribe to Central Man Network on YouTube. Be part of the Central Unit for more wrestling videos and more. And this is the Central Man officially signing out. Check you later.